welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. If you guys want to introduce yourself, I have two people on this week.
Ben Nerenhausen.
And I'm Staci Lopez.
You guys have a shop which is like actually right down the road from where I live. I've ran past it several times, and it is very busy every time I run past it, it seems like. So it's doing well. Can you guys talk a little bit about your shop and what you guys do there?
So we have a bagel shop and luncheonette, serving up hot bagels, fresh baked every morning. We've got some little small plates and sandwiches as well. Kind of bring a little touch of the East Coast to the Midwest.
And it's called Allie Boy's Bagelry Luncheonette. You're from Milwaukee, right, Ben, or around?
I'm from Wisconsin originally.
Okay.
Never really spent much time in the state. I went to like UW for a little bit.
Okay.
But grew up mostly overseas.
Okay. And what about you, Staci? Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
Okay. So what brought you guys to Milwaukee in the first place? I'm sure it's a long story, but that's okay. We have time. So what brought you to Milwaukee here?
Milwaukee specifically, we weren't even planning on stopping in Milwaukee. You know, from when I lived here in the past, I'd always just come down to go to shows and stuff because I was more familiar with Madison. Madison was actually kind of on our radar to go to.
And he has family there as well.
And I have family, yeah, exactly. I knew Justin Carlisle from Ardent restaurant up on North Farwell, and was just kind of touching base with him before we made the move, asking questions about just the state of affairs here in the States and, you know, what he thought about things. And it just so happened at that point in time, he needed a hand in his kitchen. And so he asked me to, you know, it was nice to have a job moving to a new state right away. Sure. So I was able to jump in there with him, and we took some time to kind of explore Milwaukee. And I'm really glad that we did, because we really kind of eventually fell in love with it. I guess starting from, because you guys met in culinary school, right?
No. So I was in culinary school out in Napa. I was living in New York for about 6-7 years, like in the city. And Ben was in San Francisco about the same time. And we both happened to go to Napa at the same time, him for a job at Metalwood. And I was going to culinary school, and that's how we met in Napa.
Oh, okay. Did you guys both go to culinary school at some point, or?
We did, yeah. I mean, I went to school in San Francisco about 5 years prior to when Staci did. We were living in a teeny little town, St. Helena in Napa. There's one bar in town. Everybody kind of knows everybody. And through a mutual friend, we kind of met up
we
and
met that way.
Started talking, and I was like, "You're pretty cute."
And because I was going to ask, like, even from my schooling, do you guys take a lot from culinary school? Like, was it helpful to go, or does it sort of become like you have to figure it out on your own after you graduate?
We had two different experiences, just because he started a little bit earlier. For me, I worked in restaurants my whole life, in the front of the house, and then a little bit later at the back of the house. And I'd say culinary school was good for me. Just because I was able to kind of trade on the name of that pedigree to get into certain doors. Whereas if I was a little bit younger and spent some more time in restaurants, I probably would have been able to do it that way, facilitate getting into certain restaurants that way. But culinary school helped me in that regard. For him, I think he had a different...
Well, I mean, and I appreciate everything that culinary school did. I mean, I think for me, it got me out of Wisconsin, and it got me out to the West Coast, which in the larger picture was much more beneficial to me in my career.
Sure.
You know, I kind of equate culinary school to, you know, working 2 or 3 years in the industry. You know, it kind of puts you a notch above if you were just to do it on your own. But
good foundation for things.
In no way, though, do I think it's necessary. I mean, bottom line, cooking in kitchens requires lots of hard work and dedication. Yeah. And I've met plenty of people who have never gone to culinary school and have been at the exact same level playing field as I've been. They've just been doing it, you know, longer from the ground up. So there's something to be said about just kind of showing up on the back door stop of, you know, a restaurant that you admire and saying, you know what, I really like what you guys do. Put me to work in your kitchen, you know, and you know, there's definitely kind of an old restaurant stigma of, you know, having to put your dues in and working for free for a lot. But, you know, there are ways to kind of get around that hurdle as well. And, you know, I think you could say working in a culinary school kitchen is kind of like working for free as well. You're just paying them to do it.
True. Having those experiences after culinary school, was there a specific place that you worked at that was like really I guess, formative to your experience now? Like, how did you even come up with the idea to start like the shop you have now?
To answer the first part of that question, for me, I think my fine dining background has definitely helped. I've always told cooks, take yourself as high as you can go. It's always easier to kind of downscale and bring some of those techniques and, apply them into another setting, opposed to never having learned anything at all. And so having that exposure to high-end restaurants and different flavors, different combinations, different techniques, I would say the restaurant in Meadowood was definitely probably one of the most influential ones, 3 Michelin star restaurant in Napa Valley serving, just super high-end stuff. I don't think a lot of that technique and stuff necessarily applies to what we're doing, but it's also how we can kind of set ourselves apart by kind of pulling different parts of some of those experiences and implementing them into what would maybe otherwise just be an ordinary
It's
bagel
just
shop.
good to have a well-rounded background.
Yeah.
For me, it was working for Thomas Keller and Danielle Boulud. That gave me the structure and also the know-how that I probably wouldn't have had if I had stayed in one place. Just working with other really well-traveled cooks and under very well-traveled chefs has lent a lot to kind of what we do.
Working in those kitchens also teaches you how to be a little bit more resourceful. I mean, you're put into situations where you have to be thinking on the fly a lot.
Right.
And so to say, I don't know, isn't really an option. You have to force yourself to, even if you don't know, you have to find the answer. And I think that's been very helpful, even in this situation. I don't think we came to Milwaukee necessarily with the idea dead set on opening a bagel shop. We had kind of a whole array of different concepts
we had a number of concepts that we were
interested in.
Around with.
But when we kind of settled on this area and especially the location, when that kind of popped up, it was easier for us to narrow it down and just kind of really say, that's what we want to put in that spot.
Yeah. And that leads me to another question of like, there's a difference, I guess, for a lot of people between someone you're like romantically involved with and a business partner. Sometimes it like cohesively works. Sometimes it does not at all.
We're still learning on that one too,
Oh,
yeah.
We're married, so.
Yeah. But I'm saying like, so when you initially met, were there qualities that you saw then that were like, oh, like we could start something together someday, or like qualities about each other that maybe directed you that way?
For sure. And I think it's something that's kind of evolved through our relationship. Yeah. I mean, initially it was cool just dating and being married to somebody who is interested in food and was able to relate on levels, on an equal playing field.
And to understand the commitment.
Yep.
The commitment of being in the business and
for sure.
Knowing that you work,
working those hours, working those odd hours, working on holidays, it's been nice having somebody who not only gets it, but is also involved in it at the same time. But I think, the more we went along and the more we kind of started talking about what we wanted for our future, I think it became pretty apparent early on that we wanted to work for ourselves and we kind of wanted to have our own destiny.
And then it was kind of easier to break it down and to cover all different areas of the business, knowing that we wanted to do it for ourselves. We didn't want to have to rely on other people for certain aspects of it. So that allowed us to kind of branch off into different areas and really hone in on what tools we needed to cover all of our bases. Yeah.
Is it like accurate at most places? Because I feel like the industry, there's like a high level of burnout for sure because of like the hours and things like that and the intensity of the job itself. So when you came out of culinary school and like worked your first job, were you like, oh my God, this is like too much? Or like, was it okay?
I mean, yes.
Well, I think you kind of know the lore of it, but you don't really get it until you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then that's what kind of sets you apart. It either makes you or breaks you. And if you want it bad enough, you just keep forging ahead. And I think that there was enough about the different aspects of the business that were appealing to both of us individually that made us want to move forward with it.
And early on as a young cook, I mean, there's that allure. There's that whole Anthony Bourdain, romanticized, in the shit, so to speak. We're in the grind. We're getting burned, the rough and tumble kind of nature of things. And that's all well and good, I think, for a young cook. But then it's it starts to evolve. And the more you get into it and the more, the higher up the ladder you start going, the more the focus changes on, into different areas. And
you want to build something that's going to be sustainable and build an environment that is sustainable for the people that work for you. And I think it becomes less about the daily grind and more about the environment that you can create for yourself. Yeah. And just having a quality of life inside and outside of the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that reflect like when you guys opened your own business, how you wanted the environment based on like maybe not so great ones that you've had in the past?
We absolutely, I mean, this whole thing has kind of been a collection of taking the good and taking the bad. I think even in job scenarios where we might not have looked so favorably upon it at the time, you have to be taking away the bad as well. And you have to be learning as to what you don't want to implement one day. Mm-hmm. For ourselves, we're committed to paying, fair wages, healthcare, things like that. It's a way for us to hopefully eventually be able to have that quality of life that we weren't getting. I mean, right now we both work a lot because we're pretty new and there's still a lot of stuff going on, but, we're able to make those decisions ourselves and we don't have to run it past a whole hierarchy of other people. That's not to say that it's easy to do. It's really difficult to navigate, especially in an industry where I think it was just one way forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
So diverging from that has been pretty tough, but we just take it day by day. And
it's something we hold very dear to our hearts, to be able to implement. And we're going to see it through as best we can.
So with all the good and the bad, like what kept you guys coming back to food specifically? Like, why did you love this particular industry so much?
I mean, I'll be honest, halfway through my cooking career, I had a really deep kind of, is this what I want to keep doing moment? You get in it so much and you do it for so long that at a certain point, it's like, well, what else am I going to do? I mean, unless I go back to school now.
I'm in too deep.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. What else am I going to do? Like, who's going to hire me, for other stuff? And so, whether it's a little bit of fear of, that unknown, but also you start to really kind of accumulate a knowledge and a whole palette of knowledge that all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, it's not so scary to maybe open my own business or to do all this stuff because we've been training for this essentially our whole life, and if you're not, as a young cook, if you're not like a sponge and trying to absorb all that information for use at a later date, you probably are in the wrong industry. But, I think we both looked at ourselves and we're like, there really isn't any foreseeable scenario out there that we can't really tackle.
And it's not like a what do we have to lose situation because there's always
a lot to lose.
More like wouldn't we regret it if we didn't go for it? It's something that we've been working towards
our whole lives
through the duration of our careers. And it's like, if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it?
Yeah. It's like, there's always reasons that you couldn't do something, you always make stuff up in your mind of reasons not to go for it.
Well, it's like, we can always go back and work for somebody else if all else fail. I mean, it's like, we certainly know we can do that whole side of things, but to not take this opportunity right now. And especially, I think when the building became available, it became very real. We were just kind of casually searching for a long time. And all of a sudden it was like, oh crap, this building has pretty much everything we want.
Yeah.
I guess we're doing this. So let's throw it together. Yeah. Okay. And so, I think it kind of sped up a lot faster than we initially anticipated, but I'm glad it did.
So from a young age, were you guys both really into food and like culinary, or were you cooking, or was it like something that you found as you got older?
I mean, for me, it started from a love of food, and that was what our family did. Food is what brought everybody together, even at gatherings, everything, even if we had a dining room or a living room, everything was happening in the kitchen. Everyone was in the kitchen. It was all about cooking. So that's kind of where it started for me. And as many times as I tried to stray away from that, I just kept coming back for more because food is life.
Yeah. I think kind of similarly for myself. I mean, I remember at an early age, throwing things in pots and trying to attempt to cook. And, I don't think anything ever turned out very well, but I had grandparents on both sides that, Thanksgiving comes around, there are pies all over the place. And, both sides, on my mom's side of the family, they had a dairy farm out in Western Wisconsin. My dad's side of the family, they had a huge garden and farm where they raised, sheep and horses and cows and stuff like that. And so there was always this, farm to table mantra that always kind of followed us no matter where we, ended up for the holidays. And so it was just always nice to see that kind of connection between where it was grown, where it was milked, where it was produced to, what you had on your table.
Yeah. And outside of like the bagels and things that you guys create, what other things is there a rotating menu depending on the time of year? Do you have like certain things that you always create?
Yeah. And, I think with COVID and everything, it's definitely changed our approach a little bit. I think we've opted more for things that are maybe to-go friendly. Versus our initial menu, which would have seen probably some more composed plates and more kind of luncheonette style things going on.
There's definitely staples that we focus on.
Yeah. But we're definitely seasonal. I mean, we try to keep the menu rotating and changing as things are available. I don't want to use melons in wintertime. And, I think using parsnips in the middle of summer is a little silly too. So, we try to move things around and keep it making sense. And it's interesting for people that way. I mean, I think having things change a little bit is good for everybody. It keeps people trying new things. There will always probably be staples on the menu, like
for sure. Our
classic lox sandwich. It's kind of a bagel house staple to always have, a cured salmon, something on there. Our egg and cheese sandwich, it's a breakfast place. People like that kind of comfort egg, cheese, and meat type deal. And so things like that we'll always have, but
coming from New York, those are requirements for me.
Yeah. So. But other things, like we first of all, we do all of our stuff in house. Like we cure and smoke all of our own meats. We don't buy pre-done lox. We don't buy pre-done brisket. It's all brined and cured and everything in house. But like with our pastrami, we'll switch up the stuff that's going with it from time to time, while always maintaining a pastrami kind of base for that.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, how long were you guys open in your place at Walker's Point before the pandemic really started?
It honestly happened simultaneously.
Yeah. I know, that's what I thought. Yeah.
After everything shut down.
Yeah.
It was one of these things we were planning on opening in March. And then the pandemic really kind of started to close things down. It postponed us really doing anything for another month and a half. There was still work that needed to be done in the building that kind of started to slow down, getting the contractors to finish up their stuff. All of a sudden they could only come in certain times.
And being cleared by the city, different,
inspections.
Inspections, that was all kind of difficult.
And taking longer.
People weren't at work anymore. And so that was just a very slow process.
Yeah, and it definitely kind of changed our approach to opening too. Obviously we wanted to see people inside. We opted to forego buying plates right away to buy tons of to-go equipment and things like that, and sanitizers and things of that nature. So it's put a different focus and way we've operated. Fortunately, we hadn't hired a whole bunch of people when that happened, so we were a little bit fortunate where we didn't have a whole walk-in full of food and a whole staff that we then had to lay off.
Sure.
So we were actually able to kind of open in conjunction with the parameters that were in place.
And pieces as we needed them.
It's really the only situation we've known. We only know life under COVID. Operation. Yeah. So we're actually waiting for the other shoe to drop. It'll
be like starting from the beginning all over again.
Yeah. We'll have to make hires, we'll have to hire servers and things like that. So
buy glassware.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it's this is the nightmare scenario for someone opening a business. So, and you're making it through. So if you make it through this, you'll be fine with all
and I think the whole to-go, the fact that we're going to do a lot of to-go anyway, really, I think helped us. Initially we kind of had 3 phases of opening. Initially we just did curbside. When they started opening things up and allowing people to seat 25%, things like that, we started allowing people to walk into the business as long as they were wearing a mask and stuff like that and spaced appropriately to pick up or place orders. And then very recently, beginning of this last month, we finally opened. We have a nice little patio space. And so we then had chairs and things like that, where people can still be on premises, but
and
safe
still
at the
all
same time.
Self-serve and, counter service and, they're still using to-go utensils and things like that outside, but at least it's a place for people to sit now.
And talking about that building, you guys sort of talk about it as like the perfect scenario. What was it about this space that attracted you so much?
I mean,
the location is great. You know, the third ward is super saturated and has become very expensive. And so Walker's Point to us was just kind of the next up and coming neighborhood, and we could still kind of afford to get our foot in there.
Back when we looked at buying the building back in like March of 2019, you know, there was still talk of like the trolley coming down to like First National and things like that. And just, you know, I think when we first moved here, just all the buildings going up. I mean, you look around even today, I mean, even under the current parameters, and there are brand new apartment buildings going up all over the place. Right down the street on Barclay, there's a new office building, you know, an old factory or warehouse that's getting all renovated and turned into a new office building space.
It's just a cool neighborhood too. You know, they
keep a lot of the aesthetic, you know, of the old kind of industrial neighborhood, but it's still new and vibrant. You know, there's a lot of, you know, streets that have a lot of business activity and stuff going on. And we're right on the Oak Leaf Trail, which I really like, you know, so you get lots of bike riders and people running by in the morning. I've been actually really surprised with all the foot traffic that we get in the area. I thought it was going to be a little quieter, but it's great.
Yeah. Do you ever get any Drink Wisconsinably customers that are confused wandering over there?
No, we'll still get their mail. So.
Okay.
I mean, some people come in and they used to frequent the bar, so they're like, "Oh my goodness, you guys changed it up a lot." Yeah.
We even get people that come in, they're like, "Oh, Triangle Bar. I haven't been back."
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. So where does the name come from? Where does Allie Boys come from?
So Allie Boy was my father. He was kind of my biggest connection to food. You know, we grew up in kind of a Catholic and Jewish household.
Okay.
And he brought a lot of the Jewish culture and ethnicity for me to our home. And a lot of that was through food. That was kind of our connection to the people. You know, a lot of our family came from Austria and Russia and were displaced. And, you know, he grew up on the Lower East Side where he met my mother, who's Puerto Rican. And so just kind of the combination of the two really influenced my food life, you know, my culinary.
And his name was Alan. And so he went by the name Allie Boy.
Yeah, that was kind of his nickname.
That was his nickname growing up.
So that was kind of the inspiration for me.
Because you guys, with your backgrounds, you probably could have gone down a lot of different routes as far as like the food you wanted to serve. Before you landed on like bagels and things like that, what was other ideas that you had, and why did you land at that point there?
Well, some of those ideas I might not be able to share just because we might be opening.
You might be still doing them.
They're still hopeful concepts.
But that being said, I mean, we were always looking to do probably like a fast casual type thing. And so we had some other fast casual type situations that were able to, because our whole thing is we've worked for so many other people that open up their super fine dining, hard on a sleeve project. And then what happens? You know, 3 years later, 4 years later, we're not making enough money. So now we open up the casual spot to fund the expensive spot.
Right.
So our thought was, okay, well, let's open up the thing that we know will sell. Let's open up the thing that we know we can, you know, have great margins on. We can push it hard. It's something that is approachable to everybody. It's something that people can identify with.
And a good way to introduce ourselves to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You know, because it's very much, I think we're trying to bridge the gap between East Coast, Middle East, you know, and Milwaukee. And I think the food that we're doing really lends itself well to doing that.
Yeah.
Right now.
I mean, I grew up all over the Middle East. And so being able to kind of tie some of those flavors in, whether from Syria and Turkey and Egypt and
you know, Eastern Europe,
and Israeli, you know, flavors and
Eastern
kind of
Europe
mashing that up with
German background and bringing that all together. And I think that's something that's a little bit more familiar to people. And so once you can introduce that and let people know, like, okay, you can trust us now, maybe try something else that we're doing that might not be so familiar.
And one of the things we want to do, I mean, we have this whole space that's got nothing going on at night. So I think, you know, down the road plan would be to do something in the evenings.
Which was always a thought to do, you know, for us to have dinner service there as well. So
Sure. So you grew up, you lived in the Middle East for a while?
Yeah. So, I mean, and subcontinent Asia. So my parents were international school teachers. And so when we were living in Ripon.
Ripon, Wisconsin?
Yeah.
My mom went to school there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Yeah. She went to Ripon College.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Harrison Ford.
Yeah. That's what she always says.
Yeah.
He only went there for a year though, I think.
Yeah. But my folks had some friends who were teaching down in Peru at the time. I think initially it was an idea that my dad had to go out and explore the world. Initially, they were just going to do it for 2 years. They got leaves of absence from the school district with full intention of coming back and, taking their jobs back in Ripon. Mm-hmm. And so it started off, okay, well, where's the farthest you want to go that you'd never go on vacation? So they took jobs in Pakistan.
Oh, wow.
So when I was 8 years old, we moved to Pakistan. We liked it so much that they extended for another year. And after 3 years, we were planning on going back to Ripon again. But I think small town Ripon started to look very far away after, living in Pakistan and kind of exploring that whole side of the world for 3 years. So we were vacationing in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and there was a job fair going on. And they wound up getting jobs in Cairo, Egypt. And so we then moved there. And that's where I went to middle school and high school and graduated from high school there. They wound up living there for like 22, 24 years.
Wow.
Before finally just retiring 2 years ago. I think. Yeah. Which is one of the motivating reasons on why we, started looking back at Wisconsin as well to kind of be closer to them. It'd been a long time since we'd all been in the same zip code, and it was just kind of nice to have them close by and actually be able to spend time. Yeah.
I mean, that had to be a really cool experience though, to live somewhere and go to high school in a different continent.
Yeah. And it was all U.S. curriculum. I mean, it was essentially like you took the Milwaukee school district, shrunk it down to 1,200 kids, K through 12, all on one campus.
Sure.
It was probably, 50% American, 30% Egyptian kids who could afford to go to the private school, and like 20% other different nationalities. And you'd have different embassies would send their kids there, different oil families, missionaries, things like that. So it was all geared to send kids to school in the States. Yeah. I mean, it definitely scoped my, thought of food and how I, just the flavors that I hold very near and dear to my heart. Sure. Even right now, Indian food and Pakistani food is so nostalgic to me from early food memories and stuff.
Right.
And certainly Middle Eastern food is bread and butter.
And it's just really cool to see how the spices are shared by so many different cultures. And there's just a variation on a theme in different areas. And to see how our backgrounds can come together like that is just, and create delicious things is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys have an entire world background in Wisconsin. Yeah. A little bit of everything for sure. So with Allie Boys right now, you guys are still doing takeout and things like that, correct? What are your hours?
8 to 2, Wednesday through Sunday. And
people, I'm sure, you have social media, and what's your website?
AllieBoysMKE.com.
Is your social media the same too?
I think it's Allie Boys.
I think, you type in Allie Boys MKE, and we have it on Facebook, on Instagram, the website.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you shop one of these days.
Yeah, I'll run over there. I run past there all the time. So I'll have to just run right in and get something.
Well, after your run, you need to carb load,
I know. That's the thing. Yeah, I definitely need the carbs. So I'll be in there. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.